morning. Good morning and welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose. It is wonderful to see you here today on this beautiful Sunday morning. Let's start our celebration service by standing up together and singing to move us into that spaciousness that we always carry with us. That spaciousness of spirit that is paradoxically fullness as well. And we rest in that place. We allow ourselves to become comfortable in that place and familiar with that place that we have never left. We rest in it and we remember as we listen to the words of our sacred reading.
From Soul Stories by Gary Zukov. Your soul always sees friends. That is because it sees beneath the surface. When you see a friend wearing a beautiful dress, do you think she is beautiful because of her dress? When you see her in a dress that you don't like, isn't she still your beautiful friend? When you see with reverence, you see everyone as a beautiful friend. When you see with reverence, you see holiness in everything. Holiness is like the ocean. What you see with your five senses is like the waves in the ocean. There are so many waves that you can never see them all. Some are large, some are small. All of them have different shapes and a different way of moving. All of them change in their own ways and disappear into the ocean in their own ways. Each one is unique. Reverence is like loving the ocean.
And so let us together love the ocean of humanity, of divinity, of all of that which is contained in this unbroken wholeness called life, called existence. Together we sing, I am remembering who I am. And as we remember for ourselves, we know that the name of God is I am. And we remember the spiritual truth about ourselves, but we also remember the spiritual truth about all of creation, all beings everywhere, the rocks and the sun and the trees, the galaxies. It is all the soul of existence. So let us celebrate that soul as we sing together, I am remembering. Today we know that our remembrance is reality. We are the I am presence with great joy and great love. So with that consciousness in heart and mind and being, let us breathe in deeply. And then exhale, opening our eyes in love with what is as it is. And so it is.
Good morning. If you could see you through my eyes, then you would know not to criticize. What you are is powerful, with room to grow. You're beautiful, ever in the eye of the beholder, ever in the eye of the beholder. In the kitchen as you pour a cup, and just your essence fills me up. This moment is what we are drinking in, ever in the eye of the beholder. Another day gives way to night, in a starlit world we embrace. And it's okay to be alright. I feel touched by your grace, ever in the eye of the beholder, ever in the eye of the beholder, standing in the doorway with a smile after a long day, telling me how good it is to be here, ever in the eye of the beholder. If we could see tomorrow's sunrise now, there will be all the love we allow. Hey, I said ever in the eye of the beholder, ever, ever in the eye of the beholder. If we could see tomorrow's sunrise now.
Thanks, you guys. It was wonderful. Beautiful. Thanks. Aren't we blessed? We have such a nice church, don't we? Yeah, it's really nice. Very fortunate. Okay, so I have a question for you. I'm starting off with a question, which is also my talk title for today. And the question is, do you have what you want? Sometimes, yeah. Okay. Heard a little crowd noises. Yeah, I think probably some of us have some of what we want, and some of us have some of what we don't want, and some of us are wanting for things to be better. And sometimes I think that people in spiritual circles, particularly mystical circles like this, struggle with that a little bit. I've had people come up to me and question the 23rd Psalm, that says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." So does that mean if I want something, does that mean I'm doing something bad? Is that wrong? We may get to what I think it really means in a few moments, but that's one of them. The other thing that happens with people is people who study Buddhism, and I don't know the subtleties of Buddhism like some of you do, but there is this idea of detachment, right? Detaching from that which is impermanent, which seems like a really wise thing to do. Everything is impermanent, and we don't have to cling to it or attach to it. But sometimes it feels like we're supposed to be blasé about our heart's desires and not really go for what we want or have what we want, because we should just be Buddhistly detached. And then even in this service, at the end of every meditation, after we sing I Am Remembering, I say we open our eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is. Or do we really have to love what is, even if we don't like it? So anyway, some of us may feel guilty for wanting things. Some of us may feel guilty for having things. Some of us may just feel guilty because we exist. I don't know. So my thought is to kind of explore this topic of wanting and to see where it leads us, and to just see if we can have a deeper relationship with the quality of wanting. Because despite of everything that I just said about the Lord is my shepherd and Buddhist attachment and being in love with what is as it is, wanting is part of the kingdom of heaven as well. Because nothing exists outside of the kingdom of heaven, and the kingdom of heaven is here on earth, and it is everything. So, let us begin. And let us hope I know what to say, because I'm not really sure at the moment. Okay. So I want to start by talking a little bit about who we are. And I got this imagery from this book that we're featuring this month. It's a New York Times bestseller by Gary Zukav called Soul Stories. One of the reasons that I'm reading this book is that when I go to India in a couple of months, Gary Zukav is one of the attendees. We're going to be in this sacred circle together. And thought maybe I should read one of his books before I go there. Although I have read, his first book was The Dancing Wooly Masters, and I realized that I've read that a long time ago. But anyway, Gary talks about one of his definitions of the soul, and it's very whimsical, which is one of the reasons I like it. He talks about that there are microbes in the world, and he names them. He calls them, I may not get the names right, but you'll get the gist of it. Marty the microbe. And Marty the microbe is very busily doing what microbes do, eating up things and bacteria and all kinds of stuff, and just being a microbe. Now, Marty the microbe lives in some bark, and really all Marty the microbe knows is this bark named Betty. Betty's being bark. She's protecting the tree from various things and doing whatever it is that bark does. And Betty is aware that she lives on a tree called Tommy. And Tommy is aware of Betty the bark, but Tommy also has a broader perspective, and Tommy knows that he is part of a forest. And the forest knows that it is part of the planet Earth, and it knows that it shares the planet Earth with the animal kingdom, and the animal kingdom knows that it shares the planet Earth with these things called human beings, right? And some of the time, we are aware that we are actually standing on the planet Earth, which is this ball of mud and water that's somehow miraculously suspended in the air. Who thought that up? That's crazy, right? Sometimes we are aware of that, but and we can see the stars, but we're not. Why are you laughing? but we're not necessarily aware that beyond the stars there are galaxies, right? We may be aware that we're in the Milky Way galaxy, but the Milky Way galaxy can see other galaxies, and those galaxies can see other galaxies, and those galaxies can see other galaxies, and this goes on for infinity. And you see how vast that is, how vast and magnificent that is? But the beautiful thing that I know about that Gary speaks about, is that it is also vastly intimate and tiny, because within Marty the microbe, right? That's his name, Marty? Okay, Marty the microbe. Did I really name him Marty? Yeah. Okay. I was thinking, was it Molly or Marty? Okay, Marty the microbe. There are cells, and there are atoms, and there are electrons, and a nucleus, and maybe I don't know my biology very well, I don't remember, but there are all these smaller parts that make up the microbe, and there are smaller parts that make up that microbe, or make up those smaller parts, and so on and so on and so on, so that it's infinitely vast and infinitely small at the same time. And so just as we know that it's all interdependent on one another, we know that microbe is important to this galaxy in infinity. But the other thing that I think is so beautiful is that the galaxy is part of the microbe as well, that it's all interconnected. And we are in there, in that interconnection. And that is Gary Zukav's definition of the soul. That is absolute reality. And absolute reality, the ultimate reality, is love. So all of that love is expressing through all of these things. And with all of that going on, how could we want for anything? Well, we manage, We do want for some things. And again, it's not wrong to want. Wanting is part of the picture. Wanting is the Spirit's desire to express in new and wonderful ways. A little bit more about absolute reality. I just somewhat defined absolute reality as the soul and that expansiveness that contains everything. It is the source of everything, and it contains all opposites. And within the absolute reality, there is a relative reality. And that's often what I would describe as the reality that is in relationship to something else. We know that we are immersed in relative reality when we are comparing, right? When we're comparing ourselves to somebody else. One of the examples I used was this time I was feeling like I was not enough. But then 3 seconds later, I was too much, So, it's that comparative stance that we take that, Joe Goldsmith said there's no up in infinity, there's no down in infinity. It just depends on your perspective. Ernest Holmes said that we don't change the law, we don't change reality, we simply change our position in it to get a new perspective. So that's the relative reality. It is relational. It is in relationship to something else, and it is held, all of the possibilities of the relational relative reality is held within the absolute reality. And I know that I have a confession to make. I've been guilty of this sometimes, is that I sometimes go to a place of, okay, being in the absolute is good, being in the relative, not so much. You get stuck there and it's not so good for us. We got to try and move and have that absolute perspective. But what if that's not true? What if the relationship, the relative reality is good too? What if I've been lying in church all these years and sort of steering people towards the absolute while kind of dissing the relative, you know? If we think of it as the yin-yang symbol, let's say the absolute is the white side of the symbol and the relative is the dark side of the symbol, and then there's something that contains all of it. And I think that the truth is that we are that which contains all of it. Spirit, the true absolute is that which contains all of it. It is that circle whose center is everywhere, whose circumference is nowhere, an infinite circumference that contains all of existence. If you can possibly wrap your brain around that, which you won't be able to do, nobody can, but you might be able to feel it in your heart as I'm speaking, as you breathe and breathe into these words that I'm speaking. So that business about dissing the relative, maybe the relative is important to the full realization of the absolute. St. Teresa of Avila said that my soul is both, or the soul is both the spirit and the body. Walter Starkey said, who wrote a book called It's All God, The Flowers and the Fertilizer. Thank you, Norm. It's our fertilizer expert sitting over there. Yeah, it's all God, the flower and the fertilizer. And that means that spirit is matter and matter is spirit, and that they are both incredibly important in terms of the evolution of who we are. Jesus said that we are the light of the world, but as you may recall, he also said we are the salt of the earth, that we are both, and both are important. So our enlightenment, our lightness, our divine nature is incredibly important. But let's give some credit to our earthboundness, our earthiness, our parts of ourselves that sometimes don't feel very spiritual, that these are part of the picture too, that the part that gets caught in the relative, that this is important too. It's just how we work with it that makes a difference. It's a lot like the idea of forgiveness. I've talked a lot about forgiveness over the years, particularly in classes where it seems to be a complicated topic for people, and it still is for me. I can't say that I completely understand forgiveness, but there is that line from Love Story. I spoke about this in class the other night, where they say forgiveness means you never have to say you're sorry. Is that it? Oh, love. Yes, love is never having to say you're sorry. Okay. Thank you for that divine correction. I appreciate that. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. And, we've debated about that in class from time to time. Does love really mean never having to say you're sorry? And really, if you look at love as the absolute reality, then there is no need for I'm sorry, because everything is happening for a reason. So everything is supporting our greater growth. However, if we only look at that, we're going to start acting like jerks, because the human aspect of forgiveness is that in order to realize our humanity and our divinity, we do have to apologize. We do have to forgive. They say that to err is human and to forgive is divine. But how are you going to have the bliss of forgiveness unless somebody makes an error over here? You see how they're intertwined? You need the error in order to experience the bliss of forgiveness. It's all intertwined in a wonderful way. Does that make sense? I'm feeling that deeply, so I hope it makes sense to you. And what this has to do with wanting and not wanting, being completely content with everything that is. How Krishnamurti said he doesn't mind what happens. And so far, Judy Pando, I always harass Judy about this. She's the only one who does mind what happens, because she did a whole entire talk about it. That may not be entirely true. I know somebody standing on this stage that minds what happens plenty often. But anyway, so you may be in a place that's completely content and completely not minding what happens and think that that is somehow spiritually superior. But what if equally over here, the place of you that wants something, that wants a change, that is seeking, that something within you is seeking divine expression by means of you, and that has this burning desire to get out and express in the world, what if that is equally profound and wonderful and part of the kingdom of heaven? Can you hold those two energies of contentment and wanting in the yin-yang symbol and be that circle that sees both of them, that surrounds both of them, that circle that is infinite with no circumference that surrounds both of them? Can you? Can you? Yeah, it's like, what is she talking about? Can I be a circle? I don't know. Well, let me give you an example of how how this works. Is he laughing at me today? Yeah, you just smack him for me, Kim. Gently. Yeah. So I've shared this story in my blog and in class, but I'm going to share it again with a little deeper perspective. And this is a story about my friend Jeff, who's a hiker. And Jeff likes to hike up in the mountains of Ojai. And for quite a while, he would hike and he would get just so irked when he would see that people had littered on the trail. And it would just, he'd be there enjoying the beauties of nature. Oh, look, there's the ocean. Oh, look, there's the topa-topas. Oh, look, there's a beautiful tree. What? There's a power bar wrapper on the trail. It's ruined my hike, right? So that's giving a lot of power to that power bar wrapper, okay? It is aptly named because that power bar wrapper has the power to strip him of his good mood. Hallelujah. And so he sat with this for a while, just in feeling his wanting things to be different, wanting people to be different. You know how well that works, don't you? Wanting people to change, and could he change them? Could he go on a rampage and get people to change? And so what he did was he held, as I've been talking about for the last several weeks, he held the dynamic tension of wanting what he wanted, a clean trail, and being clear about what he didn't want, garbage on the trail. And somehow those two things reconciled. They went down that funnel of the V, right, into the reconciling factor, and he came up with a creative shift, a new idea. And what Jeff did was that he decided to take a trash bag with him on his walks. And so he had his trash bag, his hefty bag, and every time he saw something, at first he grumbled a bit. He'd pick up a squashed soda can and put it in there, and then he'd pick up a power bar wrapper and pick it in there, and then he's like, wow, I wonder what else I'll find. And soon his grumbling turned to joy. So you see how that is? You see how it's not necessarily about changing what's out there, but it's what is not wanted can easily turn into a blessing with the tiny little shift in our attitude. So what is not wanted is actually good, or wanting something to be different is actually good, as long as we work with it in a way that is, as Ernest Holmes would say, scientific and affirmative and positive, right? You can want or not want anything, but just work with it in a way that is powerful, that gives the power back to you, that stops making a power bar wrapper cause and making you at the effect of that cause. Really, you are cause, and the power bar wrapper is nothing compared to the cause and the power and the force of love that you can be in the universe. Okay, so power bars are one thing, right? Power bar wrappers are one thing. They don't talk back, right? Anybody ever have a power bar wrapper? Okay. See me after church if that's the case. Yeah. What? Okay. So, one of the things that I mentioned before that we like to try and change is other people. And I had a situation with that recently where I was working with a group of people, and I felt like they were not listening to me, and I was having a hard time controlling them, trying really hard to control them. And I was wanting them to be this way, and they were being this way. And I did have moments of inspiration where I thought, oh, the fact that they're this way is going to get me to the point where they're this way. It's okay to want them to be this way. But I had to hold the tension of, okay, they're acting this way, but I want them to be this way. I had to hold the tension of that, not trying to make myself wrong for not wanting them to be a certain way, and not trying to make myself right for needing them this way, self-righteous for wanting them to be this way, just holding the tension of those two things and allowing the third force, allowing this divine energy, the great reconciler, to give me an idea. And sometimes that it's the divine idea. It's a divine idea when it's really bizarre. And so the bizarre divine idea that came to me was, treat them like they're puppies. Now, I'm not getting out my training devices and my clicker and my, choke collars or anything like that. But what happened was that I recognized, I've raised 3 puppies as an adult, 3 Vizsla puppies, and Vizslas are particularly rowdy and naughty and chew everything in sight, and just to look at the energy in this particular group of people as though they're liable to go and start chewing on the sofa at any time, metaphorically, or have a little accident in the corner or what have you, And the thing is that when my dogs would do that, I was able to correct them lovingly and firmly, but absolutely know that I just loved them at their core. And that was so helpful for me to start thinking of this particular situation as me being in a room with a bunch of puppies. I knew exactly what to do. So I eagerly wait to hear your stories about how you extrapolate from this talk, and you hold what you want and what you don't want in the dynamic tension, and you allow something greater than your opinions to move through you and come up with something that reconciles both of those aspects, to bring you something new and creative. Because the truth is that you are like that microbe that has a galaxy in it. You have infinite possibilities within you that can resolve anything. And the gift of having what you don't want is the knowing of that. And generally, if you're stuck on knowing what you don't want and why it's here, it is simply so that you can express love in a new and creative way that has never, ever been seen before in your life or in anybody's life. God made you into this beautiful being that is here to express God, and that is another way of saying God made you to express the love force and the life force that you are. And everything that comes up, and particularly if it seems like it's against you, if it seems like it's something you don't want, I would say that is a call to draw you even deeper into a new and more powerful expression of the life force and the love force that you are. Okay? Now to take it one step further, I've talked about power bar rappers and people that we want to change sometimes. What if it's something really bad? Can we find, they say that when you want what you have what you want. Get that? When you want what you have what you want. But what if you really, really, really don't want what you have? What if it's something really, really bad, really awful? There's a lot of stuff on the news now that seems really bad, really awful. There's all those stories of courageous actresses coming up and talking about sexual harassment or worse, and there's tragedy and natural disasters and devastation and politics, or even on a personal level, there's people that are diagnosed with something that they really don't want, or they're losing their life, or they are losing a job or losing their income. What if it is something that you really don't like? Do you find a way to find the gift and the blessing in that as well? And I would say, if God is all there is, and if nothing exists outside of this kingdom of heaven on earth, then yes, there is a hidden blessing in there. And what I would also say is that you don't have to like it, but you can wrestle with whatever's going on, no matter how big or how bad it is. You can wrestle with it to find the blessing within it. Dare I say that I guarantee that there is a blessing in everything that happens. Sometimes it's well hidden, but it's up to us to receive it and to bring it forth. The other night in class I was talking about Jacob wrestling with the angel, and he wrestled and he wrestled and he wrestled, and he was not going to let go of wrestling with that angel until he got his britches, one who wrestles. So wrestling is a part of our lives. We get to wrestle, and wrestling is a good thing. I do want to talk about gorgeous ladies of wrestling, but that's another topic. We are all gorgeous ladies of wrestling and gorgeous men of wrestling, doing the work of spirit through our wrestling. So you may wonder what wrestling looks like. So let's say that something does come up and you really don't want it, or something is coming up and it feels very far from your reach and you really do want it. You have what you don't want and you want something. So you're stuck in your wanting and you're not wanting and you don't quite know what to do and you're wondering if you should feel guilty about it. Again, the Bible says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And what I think that means is that in the absolute reality, yes, there is nothing to want. But we are also blessing the relative reality that says that everything is welcome at the table. And the relative reality and what is happening in the relative can help us have a deeper experience of the absolute. So part of what we're doing, let's say something is coming up, and it's coming up and we don't like it, we really don't like it. Part of what we're doing is we see it. We see it. And that sounds really simple, but so often We take things for granted, and we think that this is just the status quo, and this is how everybody does it. No, we see it, and we're truthful about it. We say, I really don't want this to happen, or I really do want this thing that I don't have. We see it. But in saying that we don't want it or we do want it, we do not empower either side of the equation. You know how I said my friend Jeff was giving the power bar rappers a lot of power, right? We give a lot of power to that which is happening by resisting it, by denying it, by pretending that we should be better than it somehow. No, we just step back from it and we say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I'm telling the truth about it. We don't have to act out on the truth that we're feeling. We just watch it and observe it. And that is the start of befriending it. Befriending it and allowing it to take us someplace deeper. And so just as I've been saying, we can hold what it is that we want and what it is that we don't want in this dynamic tension, and then just surrender it. Surrender it to something greater. Surrender it to something that knows so much more than we do. Surrender it to that which is in the galaxies and the microbes, and then stand in anticipation, stand ready to receive the gift that is brought about by your wanting and your not wanting, not in spite of, but because of something greater than what you had ever imagined before. Just keep trying it. It takes a little while sometimes, but often it doesn't. Often it's just immediate. And often what I found, you know, one of the things that we teach is to recognize the gift when it comes. In the story about the puppies, I said it's often very strange. It feels like, well, God had to think this up. But often it's so simple, and you wonder, why didn't I think of this before? You know? One of the things that was chatting about with someone several years ago was a situation with an aging father who was needing a lot of attention at home, and this person was commuting many, many miles to be with her father and to take care of him, and it was stressing her out, and she felt like she was a bad daughter for feeling stressed out by this, but you know, with what it's like to commute many miles in Los Angeles, it's quite challenging, and it can take a lot out of your day. And so she held the wanting and the not wanting, wanting to be of service, but also wanting to have a life. And ultimately the solution came. Why don't we just move Dad closer to where I live? Now, what if Dad didn't like that? What if Dad didn't like that? You know, he may not have. I found often that when I've worked with a lot of people, we have a lot of people that have aging parents here, and often when we are asking an aging parent to move out of their comfort zone and into a new place, they don't like it. But sometimes your firm yes or your firm no is an opportunity for that person to do the work of wanting and not wanting, and holding those two things in the dynamic balance and allowing that reconciling factor to come forth and bring a new solution that expands their heart and their soul and that adds to the empathy and the goodness and the grace and the compassion of all of us. Our yes or our no, our boundaries are often providing opportunities for other people. You got that? That's really important for nice people like you, right? Because we want to do what everybody wants us to do when we're really nice people, when we're a little codependent, you know. We want to please everybody. But sometimes our firm yes and our firm no is allowing that person the work that they need to do for their life and for their growth. It's all about truth. You know, the more I work with this, the more I recognize that it's all about telling the truth. And your truth may be embarrassing to you, and it may feel despicable, and it may feel like, oh, I'm a bad person for having this thought, but tell the truth anyway. Don't act on it. Tell it, see it, witness it, allow it to be, and then hold the opposite of that truth and see what happens, see what comes forth from the holiness, the wholeness of God, the wholeness of Spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever it is you want to call it, the great reconciler, and your life will change for good. I'm going to close with one thought that I had several years ago, and I use it sometimes. You know, a lot of us don't like it when we have problems, but how many of us like puzzles? How many of you like, you know, Sudoku or crossword puzzles or Candy Crush or anything like that? Ooh. Still an addict. You know, so we don't like problems, but we like puzzles. So maybe every problem is really a puzzle that we get to solve. And you know how good it feels when you put a puzzle together and there's a new picture, right? Like a jigsaw puzzle or something is resolved. So maybe every puzzle is a possibility of a solution. And we know that every possibility is a process. It hardly ever happens. Much to my despair, it hardly ever happens when you pray for something and God goes, like I dream of Jeannie, and it just pops into existence, right? I like that image of God as I dream of Jeannie. You know, we don't anthropomorphize God, but I like the idea of him with a little ponytail and no belly button showing. So every problem is a puzzle. Why don't you say that after me? Every problem is a puzzle. Oh, that was beautiful. Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. Every problem is a puzzle. Now repeat this after me. Every puzzle is a possibility.
Every puzzle is a possibility.
Good job. Every possibility is a process.
Every possibility is a process.
Good job. And what I know about every possibility being a process is that this whole thing, puzzle, possibility, process, problem, all of it, even starting at the level of the problem, even pretending that the problem is like the microbe and the solution, the possibility is the galaxy, that it is all interconnected. So really, every problem is a promise. It is a promise to help you remember who you are, that you are one with the holiness of absolute reality, living in the relative world where your soul and your body and your spirit all converge together to create something magnificent. You have the capacity to have a great life. And I offer this to you this morning with great love and great faith and great respect and great warmth and great tenderness and great exuberance for who you are, because you are beautiful. Let's have that great life now, and let us pray. Thank you. And so I turn within to recognize and feel and reveal that beautiful oneness, that incredible essence that is God, that is life, that is all things, that is absolute and relative, all rolled into one. This power, this presence, this grace, this goodness is everywhere, and it is who I am. Not only is it the galaxies and the microbes, it is who I am and who we are individually and collectively. How good it is to know this, to connect with this essence and to trust it and to call it our own, and to know that it is the life force that seeks divine expression by means of us. And so with this consciousness in mind, I bless both our wanting and our not wanting and our contentment and everything in between. Our not minding what happens, our minding what happens. All expressions of the one life that is God, expressing in beautiful and wonderful ways, drawing us into deeper relationship with it, to work with it by skillful means, lifting it up and surprising ourselves, and being surprised by the fullness and the wholeness of spirit that moves through each of us. And so for each of us today, I know this truth. I know that anything that appears to be a problem is really a promise in disguise. And that through skillful work and through moving through puzzle and possibility and process, that we reveal the spiritual truth of that problem until it becomes our friend, until it becomes a blessing. We wrestle with it with joy and delight until it becomes a blessing, because it already is a blessing. And it's simply up to us to reveal that and know that spiritual truth. Great depth and great power that blesses our lives and blesses the lives of everyone, all beings everywhere. And so I'm grateful. So grateful to know this spiritual truth, so grateful to know this goodness and this love, so grateful to witness the transformation that is taking place in us individually and collectively as a spiritual community. So grateful for everyone here today, so grateful for this teaching, so grateful for all paths to God, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams. I bless all of them with great gratitude and great love and great tenderness, knowing that we're all doing the best we can and that we're all evolving and weaving this beautiful tapestry that is spiritual life, absolute reality in existence. And so with a heart that is so filled with love and gratitude, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, thank you so much. And I release these words into the divine mystery. And together we say, and so it is.
up so high. When you look around, you're gonna find you can fly. Baby, there are changes happening in your soul right now, and it make your whole world feel like it's out of control. Yeah, yeah. If you're sinking low, it's time to remember. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Roll with the wind. You know, spirit will lift you up so you can see your dreams as they unfold. Visualize the future they hold. Trade your pony for some wings, and listen when your heart sings. Ooh, when your heart sings, yeah. I saw you made some plans that didn't work out. You can let them go, and I make you cry just a little. Ooh, when you don't know, but you can hold your head up and see the sunshine pouring down right now. 'Cause every time you let go of something you know, something else comes around. Something else comes around. When you're sinking low, it's time to remember, yeah. Ooh, roll with the wind. You know she will lift you up so you can see your dreams as they unfold. Visualize the future they hold. Oh, trade your pony for some wings, and listen when your heart sings. Yeah, yeah. Does a little song, I'm gonna play along. Woo! Make you feel strong. You know it can't be wrong. Gotta play along, gotta sing my song. Hey, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Gotta see your dreams. Don't you know we are God's dream? Someone dream this dream right here, right now.